to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and this is not Custom Faction Month. No, today is different. As I've mentioned in other places, custom faction videos are much harder to make than normal videos, and a few weeks ago life unexpectedly got in the way, as it often does on occasion. So something had to go, and I decided to push Custom Faction Month back to January to give those videos the time and attention they deserve, while also cutting back on Crank It Up content for the rest of 2022. Please don't take it personally, unless you are Sonus, in which case I'd like for you to take it very personally. There will still be our yearly airing of grievances on Friday, December 23rd, or should I say more specifically, a single grievance, and this video, which is on the guesses of Titans we didn't see that were desired and predicted by the community. Opinions on factions and their titanability vary greatly within the community, enough that this video was hard to make due to having more than 10 entries to realistically consider. Across the various channels, Crank It Up comments included, I've seen more factions suggested for getting a Titan than actual Titans created, so I've done my best to order them based on how much I remember seeing them come up. This is not an exact placement, because who has the time to actually enumerate these things across all the media, but the relevant placement is correct. What's interesting is that one of my own wishlist Titans isn't even represented here, because more people were clamoring for others based on my recollection, and I'm curious if you can guess what it is by the end. For each entry, I'll discuss my thoughts on the idea, what they may or may not need, and why they may or may not need it. And sometimes my thoughts won't center on a Titan itself, because Titans cannot solve everything. And at no point will I consider the thematic opportunities or lack of opportunities for Titan inclusion, because this is about balance, not being funny or clever. Number 10 is the most unique suggestion, and that is the negative Titan, a mandatory Titan that nerfs factions that are too strong. There is great debate over how to adjust balance. Do you buff up, nerf down, or a bit of both? And Smash Up has exclusively been the buff up approach, but a surprising number of players like the idea of using Titans to nerf down. And after thinking about this extensively, I think that this idea could never work. It would eliminate the reason to play dual Titans, as it would block those from coming into play, unless you put a clause that it doesn't count against the one Titan limit, in which case it is acting more like a Titan-like card off to the side. Honestly, just revise the cards, solve this problem correctly, but the rate of mentions highlights that a good amount of players do want to see stronger factions nerfed to more acceptable levels. Number 9 is Steampunks, and this one I don't understand. Some Steampunk cards truly haven't aged well, but I still enjoy them collectively and have had a lot of success with them. They have great recruits and a great movement package, as well as easy plays with base modifiers and some really terrific cards. A common criticism of the Steampunks, besides easily outclassed cards, is that they are draw order dependent. I think Steampunks are slightly hurt by not adhering to a design principle that I call more bullets, less reloads. Instead of relying on recursion, which can lead to spamming, have more cards that give direct benefits and more choices, and thus having less of a reason to recur them. I have a terrible habit of drawing scrap diving early, and that can become dead weight. One would be sufficient, if they even use it at all, and Difference Engine would make a great double feature. It would likely get the Week of Sharks treatment, which makes me sad, but that might be an okay trade-off. The other change I would have made is to have Mechanic play a base modifier from your hand or a discard pile. This is a lesson that I learned some time ago. Don't limit yourselves to just discard plays, as it makes drawing those cards early hard to swallow. Yes, it makes the card stronger through flexibility, but flexibility is good, and if I want to trade an early burst for one less play of Rotary Slug Thrower, that could haunt me later, so it self-balances to a degree. While I like these changes, I still don't see Steampunks being in the bottom half of factions, so I cannot advocate for their Titan ability, but some saw it differently. Number 8 is Star Roamers. This is another surprising entry, and I feel that some of my own words have made it worse. I've called them top-heavy in the past, and many repeat that. I think that this is slightly misleading. They are top-heavy to hit their highest ceiling, but their floor is still pretty high. Using common card access only, a soldier and a double feature, you still get to persist any minion and send them to any base. That's a phenomenal floor. It's easy to get lured into the potential of searching, burst, and extra plays. Maybe you don't get all of it, but you should still get some of it, and that portion is still really good. It doesn't help their cause that Ensign is often a dead card and a rules nightmare. Though I don't like this design structure, I feel like this is probably the case where the Ensign is the one-off recruit like Mulan has, and then you have a normal recruit for the other 3 slots. Star Roamers is probably the best faction I don't play enough, and I'm trying to change that. It is a favorite of Quality Mojo and that other prominent person in the Smash Up Discord, but be warned that liking this faction makes you more likely to disappoint me and then never apologize. Number 7 is Mounties, which makes me sad because the only logical explanation is that these people must hate Canada, and Canada is awesome, just like the Mounties. Mounties are one of the first factions post the Titan Pack baseline, and I feel that they are where they should be power level wise. They don't necessarily have flashy cards, but they do a lot of good things well. At various times in playtesting, Mounties felt insane, and there were interesting versions of some of their cards that necessitated nerfs, notably Mountie Major. Though I like them overall, I don't like their Sonus rule violation, especially considering Ifgate, and they have too many terminal actions for their own good. But combine great recruits with great elites, and the fact that their double features, despite having a competing priority, are both independently good, and there is a lot to like. Give them a pairing with a few extra plays, and they can really shine, and the balance level feels right to me. Number 6 is a hybrid selection, because there were different camps advocating for one versus the other for the same reason: princesses and vigilantes. At varying points, I was myself in the camp of both, neither, or one or the other, because both of these factions can be swingy. I think it is really hard to give either of these factions a Titan, because their minions are so diverse that they lack a general theme, and it would be hard to create one without being too specific on one minion, like playing extra heirlooms for princesses. Instead, my generic proposal would be one that could go to either, and let balance decide. If you are a minion-starved faction, you lack minion plays, so you'd be forfeiting those plays. So let them have a Titan that turns your regular minion play into the ability to hunt for the first minion you can get. You aren't playing a minion either way, but at least this doesn't compound from turn to turn. I think that both of these factions are plausible in terms of their Titan ability, but again, I would want to let balance decide, not democracy. And right now, I'm leaning towards no with princesses because I've had some really great games with them lately. Number 5 is the sole Munchkin representative, and while other factions got suggestions here or there, this was by far the most prominent, and that's Clerics. I think that Clerics are a lot better than people give them credit for. A lot of the debate centers around the fact that 3 of their actions are considered bad: join the club and good habits. Many say that this does not make sense, as the Clerics don't have a swarm context, and that it gives power to your opponents. And I disagree on all of this. Because Clerics don't have a swarm context, they want to give power to rival minions because it generates more power to account for their lack of swarm. And because of their ability to double score, giving global power to everyone makes a lot of sense, since you can math it out perfectly. However, what doesn't make sense is the redundancy and the fact that one is generally objectively worse than the other, as well as the fact that monsters can block it. That is honestly just shocking and has to be an oversight, and I will believe that until someone definitively proves otherwise. I also think that taking Clerics out of the Munchkin context, which is common, makes them worse because Turner becomes dead and objectively worse than Holy Roller, which feels right for a recruit ability. Giving Turner optional action destruction or conscription would have been a better choice, and I feel like the Clerics are just a few micro-tweaks away from being extremely interesting all the time. I don't see them needing a Titan because they can do a lot with their persistence already. Their Deep Fryer is essentially the Star Roaming package in a single card, but with even more retrieval thanks to Been and Gone. Also, it must be said that Clerics are hurt extensively because of a certain clause whose name we dare not speak, and I think that the retroactive interpretation was actually invented for the Deep Fryer, which just makes me sad. I swear that if we dropped that interpretation, the Titan complaints would largely go away. No matter what though, this Titan would never happen due to the loss of license and the fact that the 10th anniversary seemingly purged Munchkin from the history books, because otherwise we'd definitely be getting an Orc Titan because they have no game plan. Number 4 is one that would have seemed unimaginable a few years ago, but was extremely popular guess: Elder Things. It wasn't until recently that I started seeing people hate on Elder Things, and I wonder if it has to do with the fact that the primary mechanic doesn't scale with the tempo of the modern game. I truly believe that this game is now less turns, and when you are trying to flood someone with madness, which they do in spurts, there is obviously less time to do that, and that bases break quickly enough that it might not matter. In 2-player especially, I think Minions of Cthulhu with their Titan give away madness much better, because you get the benefits of the card granting the madness, as well as giving it away, and the fact that their Titan can double down on the madness giving away. For this one, I think it could be plausible that they've fallen, but I haven't played them recently at all, something that I will be rectifying in Day of Smashing 3. I think Shogoth hasn't aged particularly well because I feel like the player choice is odd given the amount of power required. I still like their recursion package and can always burst for 5 power from a single action, so they have some tools. But is it enough? I honestly can't say, so let me know what you think. Number 3 is another surprising entry to me, but many players were adamant about it. Kitty Cats. Yes, one of the most oppressive two-player factions in the game, a shocking number of players feel that they haven't aged well, and I don't agree. Like Star Roamers, I've called them top-heavy in the past, but once again, that is for their ultimate ceiling. Muffin is still very good, whether it's used as a swing play, terminally, or non-terminally. This may be a case of Kymel. Kymel may not have been as true in the past as it is now, but I find that if you use Kitty Cats to provide pressure without trying to shut the game down completely, they do really well. You still get extra actions, extra minions, card draw, specials, and mass movement. It's just Mr. Grumpers who is really, really bad. However, the permanent negation is also painful, as Grumpiness doesn't benefit from the conversion of control on the swing, but this is a case of Daisy Chain being in the same set already, and that idea was taken. I'd personally be terrified to give Cats a Titan, because their game plan would be already more oppressive unless you leaned into the smallest part of their strategy, like giving a benefit when a minion you don't own but control scores a base. The final two were ones that were on my list, and I was really surprised to see Samurai not get a Titan when Kung Fu did. Most people I talk to who aren't Sonus find Samurai underwhelming, but they have their fans, all 4 of them. Here's my honest thoughts about the Samurai. They have no game plan, and there is no Samurai combo that I fear at all. And that's a statement I can't even make about vampires. Yes, vampires. I struggle with deciding what type of partners to give them, because they have no game plan. They are just a utility faction who to me don't really give me any tools I can't get elsewhere. If they have a plan, it's draw Bushi. I once read that Samurai have better VP farming than aliens because they have 3 cards to 2, and I don't believe this for a second. I would have put Samurai in the average tier at best, but it's a question of where's the baseline, and it's hard to imagine that they are above it. If you are honestly telling me that out of the 11 factions that got Titans, Samurai are better than all of them, I have some questions for you. I might do a full video on this in 2023, but they aren't the number 1, which many see as a legitimate miss, and that's Sheep. Ever since they came out, I have been bearish on Sheep. My initial thoughts on them even mentioned that they felt like they needed a Titan, or should have been designed with one in the beginning, but there are players who say that they are among the strongest factions in the game, and I just don't see it. Here's what I think happens. Sheep have a very specific game plan when they do, and they excel when you give them someone who slides into that, namely, other movement combos. But what about the average Sheep combo, the random Sheep combo? Then you get a bunch of zaniness. I think that the perspective is biased towards CMZ combos, and if you use that argument, then maybe Giant Ants don't need a Titan, because some of their best pairings are downright terrifying. Black Sheep and Slock both have the extreme potential to backfire. Ram is really good, but it carries too much weight in the minion distribution, and their actions are a bit of surprisingly good to downright awful. Yes, they have Hello Dolly as a game-changing trump card, but that cannot be enough to make up for 3 random cards that can do nothing, plus shearing and counting sheep. They don't have the best waste potential of other movement factions, and too much of their game plan is controlled by other players. It's no surprise that they were the most popular guests who didn't make the cut. The fact that they missed it is the true surprise. Sometimes it's cool that we have diverse opinions, but sometimes it could also be head-scratching or jarring when we disagree so wildly on what is bad enough to be a boost. While I didn't have all of these on my list, I did have some, and I know that many of you had them on yours because I used your comments to make this list. Who is your biggest surprise snub? And who is my omission that didn't make this list? Let me know in the comments. I'll see you back here in a few weeks. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.